Hello you Plopkins and welcome back to another video on the Druzy channel. I'm back with Jesse again today. There's some wind. But we will be talking today about every AFL club's last sacked coach. Clubs make coaches resign like 90% of the time. So I've sort of had to judge it for myself to see which ones were forced to resign and which ones resigned on their own merit.
Yeah, it's like a little stinky little etiquette now you've got in the AFL where they kind of save the face of the player or the coach, in this case the coach, and they generally don't sack them unless it's pretty warranted.
But today we're talking about sacks. Without any further ado, let's get into every AFL club's last sacked coach.
We're going alphabetically. Is Brenton Sanderson from the Adelaide Crows, because Don Pike actually resigned. We decided that Pike would resign, so Sanderson was the last sacked coach. He coached them from 2012 to 2014, and I think he had a 56% winning percentage, which is a good, on face value, but Adelaide is a proud club, very successful club, and I think he had reached the prelim in his first season and then missed the finals with 10th and 11th finishes in the 2 years after that. He's now, he obviously got sacked after 3 seasons, he's now an assistant coach at Collingwood, and he seems to be doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, I mean, CV's not looking too shabby. Brisbane's last sacked coach was Justin Lepich. He coached Brisbane from 2014 to 2016, stinky period in the history of Brisbane, and he had a win percentage of 21%.
That's cooked. But yeah, that Brisbane team really did suck. It was like Gold Coast levels of bad.
He left, Fagan took over, and Fagan's been there since, and he went to Richmond. He was the forward line coach for the 3 premierships, in fact. He's done well. He's just left Richmond, though. So he won the 3-peat as a player with Brisbane, and he won 3 premierships as an assistant coach.
Wow, that's 6 flags.
Yeah.
Wow, that's actually immense.
Yeah, not bad, hey.
Next up is another kind of maligned coach, Brendan Bolton from the Carlton Footy Club, who had a winning percentage between the 2016 to 2019 period of just 21%. Again, like Lepich, yeah, it's a big fart of a little campaign there. But again, in context, Carlton was a really struggling rebuilding side after that Malthouse era. He finished 16th, he finished 18th, and then in his 3rd season, he'd won 1 from the first 11 games and was promptly sacked. He was one of those coaches who I think a lot of people believed he was on the right path because he was quite aggressive with his playing the youth, and he was quite a good sort of developer, and now I think he's ended up at Hawthorn as a director of coaching, and that's where he came from. He was under Clarkson, and Clarkson's a big rap for him. He said he would walk into the Hawthorn Footy Club at any time, so really unsuccessful period there for Bolton, but still held in high regard.
Yeah, so that's another assistant from Hawthorn that's gone on to coach on the side, because Adam Simpson did the same.
Hardwick, I think, was one of them.
Yeah,
Leon
right.
Cameron. I think it's something like 9 of the last 10 coaches that were in the grand final were under Hardwick.
Yeah,
Under Clarkson.
Bolton, one of the more unsuccessful head coaches to come out of that Hawthorn side.
Yeah, for sure.
Collingwood's last sacked coach was Tony Shaw. He coached Collingwood from 1996 to 1999 for a win percentage of 34%. And when you're coaching Collingwood, you can't be stinking it up. They're the biggest club in the AFL. He was in charge for 4 seasons. In 1999, got the wooden spoon for the 2nd time in Collingwood's history, and he was shown the door after being a club legend. Where is he now? Pretty sure he works in punditry or something. I see him on the TV sometimes.
Yeah, something to do with Fox Footy, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Speaking of club legends, we've now got Jimmy Hurd from the Essendon Footy Club, and again, this is one where he technically resigned, we saw, but again, it was mostly due to the pressures of unsuccessful period, tarnished legacy, and then the whole huge drug scandal as well. So we're kind of chalking this up as more of a sacking, even though it might not have formally happened in that way.
It was external events that sort of prompted him to resign.
Yeah. So he coached the Bombers through 2011 and through to 2013, and then 2014 is when Bomber Thompson took over as caretaker, and then he went back in 15, and he had a total win percentage of 49%, and it was kind of a mixed bag because when it was good for Hurd at Essendon, they were a really good team. I remember thinking he was quite a highly regarded coach. Of course, that might be down to some other
Yeah, I was going to say.
But I mean, that was
something in the bloody veins, mate.
It was still a very successful little period for Essendon, and who knows whether it was directly due to the drugs. I'm not sure. You have to assume probably yes. But long story short, he resigned at the end of the 2015 season. Essendon was near the bottom of the ladder. Again, just largely due to the pressures. Essendon kind of stuck by him a little bit, but overall, it got too much for him. Things went really pear-shaped for him in his personal life after that, which is really sad. But nowadays, he is actually a broker for sales of European soccer clubs, I believe.
Yeah, that's pretty mental to go from the AFL to big European soccer clubs. Fremantle's last sacked coach was, of course, Ross Lyon, the absolute cockroach. Coached Rio from 2012 to 2019 for a win percentage of 52%. Feels like for the first bloody, 4 years of his tenure, he probably won like 80% of his games. Then the last like 3 or whatever it was, just lost like every week. Best period for the Dockers ever, and then following that, it was just absolutely depressing to watch the Dockers. He currently works in AFL media and he's on Footy Classified, adding to an already pig-dominated panel.
Yeah, literally the analysis of that show is literally just back-to-back oinks. Next up for the Geelong Footy Club, we have a coach that I literally learned today, Coach Geelong. I did not know this. Gary Ayres was coach at Geelong after Malcolm Blight, and I think before Bomber Thompson, I assume. It was between the 95 to 99 period. In 1995, Geelong lost yet another grand final, which was a period where Geelong lost a lot of grand finals. And in 95, they lost to Carlton. And then finally in 1999, they finished 11th and he wasn't offered another contract. So he left Geelong for the Crows. In terms of where he is now, in 2008, he was appointed coach of Port Melbourne in the VFL, and he has coached there since. And that's actually a very long stint for a VFL coach to be there 12 years later, particularly with someone with his sort of like pedigree. He's had 2 VFL premierships, 3 minor premierships, and he had an undefeated season in 2011. So things are going pretty well for Gary Ayres at that footy club.
Took a step down to VFL and he's absolutely dominating by the looks of it, or 2 premierships. So yeah, good on you, Gaz. Gold Coast's last sacked coach was of course Rocket Rodney Eade. He coached the Suns from 2015 to 2017, a stinky period in the Gold Coast history. Not that any of it hasn't been stinky, but a win percentage of 25%.
I hate the term stinky period.
Fucking hell. So he finished 16th and 15th twice. He was sacked, replaced by Dean Solomon. He holds the record for most AFL games coached without winning a premiership. And by many former players under Rodney Eade has been called a dinosaur, such as Dan Gorringe. So maybe he's a bit past it. He was last seen helping Daniel Busher in Daniel Busher's basement.
Next up is a short and sweet one. The other expansion club, the GWS Giants, have never actually sacked a coach. Sheedy coached 44 games for them as their inaugural coach, and they only won 3 games before he was appointed to the GWS board.
Hawthorn's last sacked coach was Peter Schwab. He coached the Hawks from 2000 to 2003 for a win percentage of just 47%. He made finals in his first 2 seasons and missed in the following 2. Started the 2004 season and said the Hawks will win the flag. That's pretty cocky and arrogant for a coach to say. Fast forward to round 16 of 2004 and Hawks were second bottom. So he said they were going to win the flag, closer to winning the wooden spoon. He was pressured to resign and he's now a director of coaching at the AFL.
How would you feel if you're the coach of a club like Hawthorn, who were a pretty middling club back then, and then your successor takes Hawthorn to like an all-time run?
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Bit of a sting for the ego, that one. It's like an ex-girlfriend who was a bit of a porker turning into an absolute supermodel with an ex-boyfriend. Like, you'd be like, come on. Next up is Mark Neild from the Melbourne Footy Club, and this probably would have been one of the least enjoyable coaching stints I've ever seen, because it would have been just an absolutely depressing place to go. Melbourne was an absolute quicksand pit of a club, and it was a real it's sort of a career killer for any coach to go there during that little period there. I think he succeeded Dean Bailey, but either way, he had a 15% winning percentage over 2 years, 2012 to 2013. Won 1 out of the first 11 in 2013, so it was actually only a season and a half he lasted. What's he doing now? He is the CEO of the Geelong Basketball Club.
North Melbourne's last sacked coach was Brad Scott. Now, again, it's one of those where he resigned, but really the club pressured him, asked him if he felt it was the right time to step away, and he did. He coached the Roos for 9 years from 2010 to 2019 and had a win percentage of 50%. Made a prelim where they got smacked by the Eagles, and yeah, in 2019 he stepped away. He's now an AFL game development manager, so that's a pretty made up role if you ask me, but that's what he's doing.
Next up, we have Port Adelaide Footy Club's Matthew Primus, who was a favourite son of the club, and the coaching stint didn't work out so well. To be fair, he took over at pretty much the lowest ebb Port Adelaide's ever had, and he had a win percentage of 28% between 2010 and 2012. In 2011, they finished second last with just 3 wins, and they only had 5 wins in 2012, and I know that they lost to both expansion clubs. They were the first team to ever lose to the Gold Coast in 2011, and then after they lost to GWS in 2012, their first season, that was when Primus was told that his contract was going to be terminated at the end of that year, so he left the club. Ironically, then joined the Gold Coast. He's been there ever since as an assistant coach, which is a very lengthy stint as an assistant coach at that club, but that's been nearly a decade.
Richmond's last sacked coach was Terry Wallace. So he coached Richmond from 2005 to 2009 for a win percentage of 38%. For the first 3 seasons, they missed finals, and then in 2008, I believe, they come 9th after being touted to make finals. The following season, again, they were predicted to make the top 8, and it just didn't work out for Wallace and the boys. So in 2009, won 2 out of 11 games. His last game was against the Western Bulldogs. They lost, and yeah, lots of pressure was mounting on him to resign. He did resign, but then he became a well-respected member of AFL media. Just retired this year. Good on you, Terry.
Go Taz. Next up, we got the Saints, and you don't have to travel too far back to see Alan Richardson was their last sacked coach. He actually coached for a lengthy period, 2014 to 2019. I remember thinking at one point, gee, I can't remember him coaching that long, but he was just sort of quietly mediocre in the background while the Saints were kind of rebuilding, to be fair to them. And now, obviously, Ratton's taken over and the Saints go on and win a final in their first year. Is that a reflection on Richardson? I'm not too sure. I mean, I've no doubt that Ratton's a good coach, but also he had injury issues and the fact that they were rebuilding through that period. So, that being said, he had a winning percentage of just 34% over the 5 years. Didn't make finals in that period, was eventually told to get his sack out. Is that what sack means?
Something like that.
He is now an assistant coach at the Melbourne Footy Club.
For the first time in one of these videos, we've got two of the same person making an appearance. For Sydney, it was Rocket Rodney Eade, who was sacked in 2002. So after finishing in the finals 5 out of his first 6 seasons, the Swans slipped to 14th on the ladder. This was in the 2002 season and they had a win ratio of 29%. So they were doing well and then it just started to sink really. About this point in the season where the board decided it'd be best for Eade to move on at the end of the season, he chucked a sook, threw his bloody toys out of the pram and quit midway through the season. He didn't want to finish his
It was
season.
a strange thing for a grown man to have toys and a pram.
I wouldn't put it past Rodney Eade. Where is he now? He was last seen getting frozen yogurt with Daniel Busher.
Next up, we go to the West Coast Eagles, my footy club, and we're going to go with Ken Judge because we decided John Worsfold wasn't sacked. He probably should have or could have conceivably been sacked in his final year, but the board was genuinely shocked when he resigned due to personal issues. Didn't have a love for the game anymore. So it was Ken Judge who oversaw the Eagles during definitely one of the lowest periods during the club's history during that 2000 and 2001 period. Didn't finish with the spoon. We did that later under Worsfold, but either way, I think we finished like 14th in 2001. Many people consider that our worst season. He only had a winning percentage of 28% in that period, and he really just copped all the shit right before Judd was drafted and sort of Woosha took over and made it, a great team.
Flourished.
Yeah, it was probably one of the greatest midfields of all time. After his brief stint at that club, he was a 6PR caller, if I'm not mistaken, and a pundit over the radio for many, many years. And then unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago due to illness, which is very sad.
The last team in this video is the Western Bulldogs, and their last sacked coach was not Paul McCartney, Brendan McCartney.
Cousin Brandon.
He coached the Bulldogs from 2012 to 2014, a stinky period where they only won 30% of their games. McCartney's resignation came after lots of players started being unhappy under...
Resignation.
Resignation. Same thing, different smell.
Remixed to ignition.
Yes. Can you remember when Ryan Griffin came out and asked for a trade to GWS?
I do remember that.
He was captain, and this was under McCartney, and it was the next day that McCartney resigned.
Ah.
The board said that the players don't run the club, but they do listen to their concerns, and it was the next day that the club, had chats, and it was best decided that he resigned.
Know who the Dogs got in that deal, though?
Who?
Boyd kicks a goal! Fuck! Delivered them a premiership, that trade. So really, they have a lot to thank McCartney for.
Yeah. Cheers, McCartney. He's now an assistant or a coach of some kind at Melbourne, a strategy coach. So there you go. But that will wrap up this video on the Druzy channel. Hopefully we didn't piss anyone off too much in this video after being told we're ugly and know nothing about football.
Yeah.
It's not too far from the truth, to be fair.
And they didn't even know that we were YouTubers, those guys.
That's a real thinker, that one.
Yeah.
2021 is here. I'm going to keep making these sort of videos until footy season comes around. So if you like them, let me know in the comments. Comment turtle. And there will be new and improved content coming in the 2021 season that I am very excited about. Thanks for watching. Thanks for coming on, Jesse. Check out the True Footy channel if you haven't already. And have a good day, you plonkers.